Here's another video for you guys. Good morning, Ryan. My think tank's brewing up here. I still can't get over location fees at your Ford dealership. Locating parts to fix your car. Additional fees. Whew. I would have said, sorry, I'm paying you for your diagnostic time. I'm going somewhere else. So let's get started. Years and years and years and years ago, it would be my opinion to say that vehicles could handle lackadaisical maintenance practices and schedules. For one reason, transmissions were bigger, differentials were bigger, radiators were bigger, cooling systems were bigger, and made of better quality ferrous and non-ferrous materials. So you could buy a car and literally just put gas in it and change the oil. And even if the engine ran low on oil because it was leaking oil or had smoked out the tailpipe or whatever, and it started to knock, put some oil back in it, it wouldn't knock anymore. Well, you get an engine that knocks today, it's catastrophic. The metal, the rods, everything just can't handle it. So you could buy a Honda and a Toyota many, many, many moons ago. And just basically, I call it the gas and go customer, and he would either change his oil every 3,000 miles or he's not. And those cars would survive. Let's fast forward to 2015, and I'll just even say 2010 and up vehicles. You're not getting a 2020 vehicle to go 10,000 miles without consuming oil and antifreeze. So what does that tell you? You're not going to buy a Toyota or a Lexus or a Honda and continue to do your 1970 maintenance practices and expect that vehicle to be worth anything other than a pile of plastic scrap in a junkyard. That's for sure. But and anyone in the industry could probably support that. Years ago, many moons ago, everyone used what was available for resources. Before the great Chinesium scenario happened. And what happened is we started recycling. Recycling saved the planet. Recycling only cost you as the consumer. Recycling your engine, your plastics, your radiators, and all this degrades the quality of material. And some top level race engines people will not even use metal from the United States or irons or steels or billet. They go to Germany is probably the best and highest quality. Even your military samples their materials for quality so they don't have submarines and tanks falling apart out on the field because they know that there is levels to this shit. But yeah, someone tell me that I'm wrong, and I'll tell you that you're wrong because I know this for a fact because I've been around a long time. You cannot maintain your current present year make vehicle, 2023 or 2020 or 2010 or anywhere in that area, 10 and up. And probably it started in 2000 when they switched to a lot of aluminum cylinder heads and they blamed Dexos for eating the gaskets. It was a chemical reaction of everything inside the engine that caused that, and the manufacturers lying to people and saying, you can go 100,000 miles on antifreeze, which is a complete lie. 100,000 miles on spark plugs, which is a complete lie. Now, fast forward, right now you have smaller radiators, smaller evaporator cores, smaller this, smaller that, cheaper material. Transfer cases that were the size of a 30, 40 pound turkey are now the size of your hand and hold less than a half a quart of fluid. And these customers are maintaining these vehicles or thinking that they don't have to maintain this thing, and these transfer cases are running out of fluid because it's burning up and evaporating out the vent tube, and then by the time the car is out of warranty, right, so it's out of warranty, 3 years, 36, $1,500 transfer case, or rear end differential because they made them super small too, and don't tell you, hey, by the way, you need to maintain your transfer case and your differential like every 15,000 miles, because if you don't, your car's going to be out of warranty and you're going to wind up spending $3,000 or $4,000 in differentials and transfer cases.
No shit.
Yeah. Yeah, so they don't tell you the right way to maintain your car. And they say that they test all this shit. They're liars. They don't. They didn't test Honda engines enough to say that, wow, in 30,000 miles it's going to have carbon valves to where it's going to need a cylinder head and it's consuming antifreeze. Same thing with Kia. They lie, they lie, they lie. All lies. It's impossible for them to say that they've tested these vehicles, or they did, and knowing that they're saying, well, it's just going to barely make it out of its warranty period. So let's roll the dice on this. We've already put this in production and we spent all this money. We'll push it back on the consumer. That's what it is. Same thing with those taillight assemblies last night. You can't tell me that they didn't wash those vehicles at the Ford assembly line, because I've watched it, where they put them through like a tsunami, and they didn't find any of those Ford trucks that were taking on. Same thing with Tesla. Same bullshit. They're like, well, we're only seeing 1 out of 100, right? They make 1 million vehicles. How many people are getting screwed? Everybody. A lot. And that, it'd be lies. 1 out of 100. It's probably 1 out of 50. You know, if you ever watch assembly line processes, they'll stop a whole production line if something isn't 100% on target. And I'm talking about body panels. They have somebody watching that whole product line, and then an alarm will come and he'll stop and he'll check and he'll see if he can get his tool in that hole, even though the computer said, hey, this is getting a little out of whack. Someone needs to check this to make sure that we don't have 1 million of these vehicles headed into the next part of production and we can't put them together. So he stops that one vehicle that it tagged and said, okay, it's still close enough. But if he didn't stop that thing and just let it run, eventually the jig is going to become out of spec, and they're going to have a whole production line of cars that are screwed up, and then it's going to wind up some guy at the end of the assembly line says, shit, I can't get this taillight assembly in, like Tesla. And what do? They just keep banging it together, and the body lines are all over the place, and there's gaps and fit and fitment issues because they don't care. They put it back on the consumer, and if the consumer isn't educated enough to know this, they buy that piece of crap, and then they're plagued with issues. And if they own it, they're not leasing it, they're married to it. Yep, until they can't get rid of it. Well, until they have to get rid of it, and then they wind up upside down or whatever the case may be. You cannot maintain your current vehicles like you did 20, 30 years ago. It's impossible.